All right, I have 7 o'clock, so we'll get started. Start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up, we have comments from citizens. Do we have any citizens who would like to make comment?
Mr. Dollins was invited to use this opportunity to enter something into a record that he tried to deliver to the city clerk this afternoon, but it's of no, it's not in our purview. It's really a letter to the school board where you wanted somebody to acknowledge that it had been delivered. And he was going to read it tonight, but he's not here, so he might show up later.
Okay. For the school board, I don't know what we have to do with it.
We keep him from going to meetings.
We do.
At the request of the board, I believe he's been escorted out of several meetings.
Not at our meetings.
No. School board meetings.
No, that's his problem, not our problem.
Well, I think he is making it our problem by us having a law enforcement officer at that meeting.
They're doing their
Which
duty.
is right.
No.
The law enforcement officer is at that meeting at the request of
Yes.
the school board.
Okay, well, no comments from the citizens, we will move on. We have an electric department, we have an activity report on the electric department. Does anybody have any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to the chipper purchase.
All right. You should have some bids there, and also kind of a summary of those bids. We requested bids on basically just a basic chipper, just to replace what we have, and we got a couple of demo units to try out, one from Altec and one from Vermeer, and so they also submitted a bid on those 2 units, and so that's kind of what it explains there in the summary. And also because of, right now is getting ready to be another emissions change on diesel engines, and so to keep the price in the ballpark, both Vermeer and Altec had to derate their engines to below 75 horsepower to make it affordable. But which the one we have right now is just 76 horsepower, and that's when I sent the specs out, I asked for 76 horsepower or higher, not knowing about the emissions change coming up. But it just so happens that the demo units, and apparently Brush Bandit had a unit somewhere that they all did bid on some 85 horse units. And the low bid was the demo unit that we have sitting at our shop right now with only 20 hours on it from Altec. And it actually exceeds all the specs. It actually has some options on it that we didn't even specify, that, you know, the options that we'll use will be handy, but they just weren't specified. I don't know if you guys have any questions or anything. I mean, I actually included full bid sheets and everything with all the specs on it that each bidder sent in, just in case you were interested.
Don't we have another truck by Altec?
Yeah, we have 3 trucks.
Okay.
And both the bucket trucks and the digger truck are all Altec. And they bought out a chipper company, I think Woodchuck brand chippers, I don't know, in the last maybe 5 years or something. Altec bought them out and started manufacturing chippers.
Do you need action on this evening?
It's not necessary. I mean, we do happen to have it at our shop. It won't, I mean, I told them that it may be 2 more weeks before you guys take action. So it's
What's wrong with the old chipper?
it's getting to the point where it is kind of starting to nickel and dime us a little bit. I'd say right now, it could probably use a clutch. The biggest thing is, I mean, it's 20 years old, and we're starting to get general wear and tear on it.
And
Just,
what you're specifically using it, we're not using it out at the landfill, is it what, it's just for you?
yeah, we just use it when we trim trees. And then during spring cleanup, a little bit. But mostly, majority of the time, it's just trimming trees.
So it doesn't have a lot of hours on it?
No, this one's got, I think our chipper has about 2,500 hours on it.
What are we gonna do with the old one if we do buy one?
I would suggest just putting an ad in the paper and.
Do they take trade-ins on them?
I didn't check with Altech on that this time. I don't know if they do on chippers or not. I mean, it's been our experience on the trucks. When we traded in the trucks, we've gotten probably half of what we could have gotten selling outright. And, you know, in the same way on the, in my opinion, we got twice as much as what that skid loader was worth when we sold it outright versus what they were gonna give us for a trade-in on it. So,
It's been my experience.
so I didn't even ask about trade-in. I mean, I can if you guys would like me to, but it just seems like lately our experience has been we've got more money just putting an ad in the paper and selling it to high bidder.
I would guess that we probably will get more money for it that way also.
But if we use Ashland and not that many hours on these, do we really have to have one right now?
Well, I
We
think
don't, it's 20 years old, and still got how many hours?
about 2,500 for sure from just doing the equipment use the other day, 2,500 something hours.
So that's not a lot of hours on one for that, for 20 years.
I would assume not.
And we also hire Ashland every year
We
to do
do.
some of our work,
Yep.
so.
Is that still chip or is it still chip when they cut?
They chip what they cut.
And they do stump removal too, right?
Correct.
Well, I'd say we probably need to wait for 2 weeks. We don't need to take any action on this tonight.
Be better with the full board.
Yeah.
For the record, we budgeted 35,000 for this, so this is well under budget. Surprisingly low.
Yeah.
All right. Next item up is GIS. Nothing's in the packet, no.
Okay, since the last meeting, did some inquiries, talked to Alderman Wilkins, who couldn't be here tonight, about open source. And he is very skeptical and recommended against using open source software because there's nobody that has any obligation to maintain it once it's out there. It may be free, but if it glitches, nobody is obliged to do repairs on it because nobody's putting any money to it. If the person who developed it wants to go off to the valley and take a well-earned retirement, that's their business. So it's not reliable. I spent some time talking to both the city of Ashland and the Regional Planning Commission about the project they're doing with GIS. Ashland is really the first city they're involved in. They've done lots of maps. They have a good deal of software and they're capable of presenting street maps and general plans and that sort of stuff. But Ashland's the first one that actually started to do GIS for. And really, they're doing the data entry. Ashland had to hire Allstate at $1,200 a day to go out and do the field work. And then they bring it to the planning commission enters it. At the moment, they haven't bought the software that the planning commission has. Either when they need maps or need to make changes, they have to drive down to the planning commission and do it at that location. Well, that's fine, because the planning commission is in Ashland, but it's not fine for us. It's not a tenable situation. So if we were to go that way, we'd be buying software, we'd be spending money similar to what we spending with the Midland proposal to get the field work done, and we'd probably have to do it somewhat frequently after the fact. Right now, they've only done water corrections, so they don't have, again, any experience doing sewer, electric, which is what we would want to do on the first try. So, I can't really recommend that. They might or might not be cheaper, but they don't have a track record, that we could rely on. Now, I trust the people involved, but I don't, there may be problems they haven't encountered yet. Which gives us back to hiring somebody to do it. All the firms that we know of that will do it, one gets all the recommendations when we go to the full meetings or Missouri Rural Water, and that's Midland GIS. They come in their proposal, there's about 4 pages of cities and counties in Missouri that have used them. So while they're a focused company and semi-local, they are also big enough that they're not going to go anywhere, because there's a customer base there that will continue. They'll be wedded to this. It will continue no matter whether there's change in ownership or one of the principals dies or anything like that. Therefore, I recommend that we look at Midland GIS. They did present a fee schedule to us last year with the proposal just to me, which I used for budgeting purposes. A couple weeks after that, the price went up by $308, but that's inconsequential compared to the total. And since then, we've confirmed that the price quoted last spring will be held. So the suggestion is that we still go with Midland GIS to do complete survey and data entry and map creation for sewer, water, and electric systems. And that would cost us $78,508. And then there is, like any other system, there's an annual maintenance fee, just like the report writing software that Chief has, or if we were to buy ArcView, or
There'd be annual updates.
there will be annual updates and a maintenance fee on that also.
Right.
So that's with Alderman Wilkins' recommendation against the open source. There wasn't any reason to try and run down the small cities that actually had gotten involved in it. Basically, that engineer is just selling the services on training and that's what everybody else is selling too.
Basically, what they're looking for is they're trying to get into the engineering of those cities when they do this. Company that we're dealing with, Midland, does not do the engineering, so this is what they're interested in, is getting a good map. These others are just interested in getting in their foot in the door with the city so they can make money off the engineering. You do not get this good product from people who are not dedicated to it. So, I'm assuming we'll have no action on this tonight.
No, it's,
No, okay.
Anybody have any questions?
and something like this would take an ordinance
Okay,
to sign a contract.
any questions?
Exactly. After 100 years of being at the city limits, why are we now moving on doing this?
GIS actually saves money, because you have better maps. You know where things are. Finding power poles is something you can do in a snowstorm. Finding manholes and finding water valves, is problematic. Last year, when the water line broke, they were within a foot of where the water meter, water valve is located. They couldn't find it to even shut it off because of all the snow and ice out there. If they had GIS and proper tools, they could go out there and they could pinpoint that much more accurately and know what to take it out. As it turned out, in that one, it really made a difference because the valve itself didn't work. But they had to try that before they could try other things.
But you're saying GIS is not just GIS?
It's not just a map, it is, you start, everybody that has gotten into it, in every city that has started using it, has found that it actually saves them money in the long run.
But I'm saying though that this, one is not just as good as the other.
No,
One GIS is not as good as.
not
the other.
necessarily, no.
How?
Depends upon the quality of
The
the
quality
data
of-
that's put in.
Right, and the equipment that you use to take those readings.
Which is the equipment that we eventually have to buy.
No, the company's gonna have it.
No,
But eventually. we'll have to
Eventually, we
buy it.
might.
eventually
update.
we might buy it, or we might have them come in on a yearly or every other year basis and pick up new stuff for us. Depends upon whether we wanna buy the data or the equipment.
Your smartphone has a GPS locator in it, but its accuracy is like 10 meters. So the equipment that this company's using has accuracy of inches.
About a tenth of a foot.
Yeah.
And the equipment that we buy is not gonna have that.
Yes,
It would.
it would if you buy the right equipment,
If you spend the right amount of money on it.
but you also have to know how to use the equipment. It's not just a black box where you plug it in and you get good results because you plugged it in. You have to know what you're dealing with.
But the company that we were talking about was gonna give free training.
No,
they
no,
were
no, they were
free
gonna
training.
charge for the training.
Yeah,
They were going to use software they downloaded from the cloud.
right.
They didn't own the software, there wouldn't be presumably any charge, but the training would require us to buy equipment. And
And
the
they
cost of the
travel
equipment,
arrangements and-
yeah,
Yeah.
the cost of the equipment was directly proportional to the accuracy you wanted. You could buy for a couple $1,000s something that got you to a cell phone accuracy, but to get to the kind of survey accuracy that Don's talking about, which makes it more usable, you're talking $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, depending on brand.
Probably more like 13 to 15,000.
Okay.
So if we bought the equipment, it's 15,000.
Plus the time to
That's
data.
the time to load it on a computer, train people how to use it, maintain it.
And I guarantee,
Once you train somebody though, it's your training.
Unless,
well,
unless
you're not
somebody
gonna
comes
train
along
somebody
and
in a
gives us a
couple
better
of
deal,
months.
then we gotta train somebody else.
You're dealing, the difference is taking an amateur out there. I mean, I can train a monkey to go out and use one of my survey instruments. Are they a surveyor? No. Can they get the results that I can out of that equipment? No. They don't have the experience.
But
That's the difference that you're getting.
And we ran into that down in the National Guard. We had a young lady that got very proficient at GIS. And she trained some of us how to use it, just enough to make us dangerous. And then, she actually got hired on by another company for a lot more money. So now we were back to square one, having to try and train up somebody else again.
I mean, it is not something that you get by hiring somebody to come in and train you for 2 hours.
But is
You're talking weeks and months.
What's the cost difference? How's that? What would be the cost difference?
There's no bottom line on the other one, because they're not doing the work. I would have to estimate number of hours involved in doing the field work at our wage rate and our benefit rate, and add that to the cost for the actual equipment to do the measurements. And to be perfectly honest, I could make that number do anything I wanted, because it's so vague a guess as to how much time would be involved.
These guys,
These guys have a good
they
idea.
have a good idea because they do it.
Yeah, they took a
If
look
our-
at our
if our
maps
guys do
and
it-
they,
But like we said.
They're gonna do it a day here, a day there, or part of a day here, and part of a day there. These guys are gonna come in and they're gonna do the whole town within a matter of weeks at most.
but the open source guy, it doesn't matter to him how much time it takes, because
Yeah, he
he's not
doesn't care.
involved in that part. And Ashland would certainly take a lot of time and program.
Yeah.
But the product would be at least an unknown.
You gotta realize, the quality of a GIS is in, surveyors say that GIS stands for get it surveyed. Because if you don't have good survey data to start with, your GIS is worthless. I mean, it just really is worthless.
It's the same as the measurement. If you don't have the right measurement, start with your village on your right.
Right.
I understand.
Would you like some representative from Midland to come to the board, make a presentation?
What about the other guy?
They got open source software there. They're not doing anything for us except for they're gonna put it on the computer for us. We've gotta do everything.
And that's why I would like to know the cost difference between what you say.
We don't know.
That's
Lynn
my point. We don't-
Lynn doesn't know. And he said if they had number from all,
We'd be able to tell you, you know?
We don't know.
You'll be grasping at straws at numbers out there.
Lynn would be, I mean, he can give you any number you want. Because he doesn't have a clue as to what it's gonna take to do it. I don't know what it's gonna take for them to do that, because I have no experience in trying to do
That's
something.
because we didn't go to any of the other towns that have done it, right? Because we went with the recommendation of
Once
David
I
Williams
talked
that
to,
said,
yeah,
no, that's not a good recommendation, so we didn't even go to the towns that have used that. That would say, it took us, we're a town of 3,000, 2,000, and it took us X amount of time to figure this out.
If we do it ourselves, what's gonna happen is you're gonna have several different people that are going to be involved in it, because you're gonna have, depends upon who's available to do it, you're going to have not the same quality of measurements from every person that's doing it, because they don't have the experience to know what they're dealing with. If that's the case, at some point, you're going to want a better system, and you know what you're gonna do, is you're gonna pay to have the whole thing done right, because we didn't do it right to start with. You can pay for it twice, or you can pay for it right the first time.
But we never checked into that to see
No,
that.
Lynn's not, because he said they would recommend against using that software.
they didn't even recommend a particular device for measurement, they just gave sort of.
But you buy the equipment for $15,000, it doesn't come with software?
It
Come with
comes
software,
with
it doesn't come
GPS
with
software, it
the,
doesn't come with the GIS software.
or the person that knows how to use it.
Well, but it comes with training to put the person.
Not for
that knows how to do it.
$15,000, you're gonna spend about $1,000 a day is what they charge for training. And I
And
guarantee
what was
you
his
that-
estimation that he said that he could, when you told us last time, you were the one that said, he said he could come in here within.
2 hours.
Yeah. I don't know, 2 or 3 days.
Right.
But,
So that at $1,000 a day, that's $3,000.
yeah, but
You're
then,
not
then
going to
you're,
get what
then
you
you're
think you're getting out of
taking
that.
for granted that the people we pick are going to grasp that knowledge quickly, and,
You guys are the
you
people.
know,
We're the monkeys.
You guys are the people.
yeah.
And
And
they
I
don't
believe
have a lot of free
that
time.
these guys are pretty intelligent
They don't have a lot of free time to do it.
to.
We can hire 3 more people and then do it that way.
If we set up transit, I'm probably gonna read it just because of the way I read it and the way Phil would read it, it's gonna be a little bit different. We're gonna be ballpark here and there, and I'm not wanting that.
It's like
on a
shooting a
sewer
gun.
line.
If I shoot your gun, I'm gonna shoot differently
Right.
than you do.
Yeah.
But I understand that. But once I get, both of you get together.
It takes a lot of training to do that. A lot more than what they've got. These guys don't use it enough and won't use it enough to become highly proficient at it.
But if they start out, if they start out, then they will be
No.
proficient at it.
Not unless that's the only thing they do. It's one of those skills, if you don't use it, you lose it. You know, there's a lot of people that, you know, learned how to shoot a long time ago, and they couldn't pick up a gun today and shoot. You know, or ice skater or something like that. I
Our bicycle.
don't know. Or less, you know, who knows?
And once you've learned how to ride a bicycle, you always know how to ride a bicycle.
I guess it's not the same thing.
Not on slack.
Not necessarily.
Among their material sent to me, there is no exact amount of time, or even an estimate amount of time about how long the training would take.
But if we check,
These
For instance-
guys, I will tell you that these guys have gone in after other companies have been there and done something, or after cities have tried to do their own, and they've gone back in and they've redone those. And they had to do the whole city because there was enough bad data in there, they didn't know where all the bad data was. The city had to repay to have everything done in order to get a good map, because they did not have good maps to start with.
Okay, for instance,
That's what you end up with.
I've got my degree in computer information systems. All right. I don't work in computers right now. I work with them, but not as, I'm not proficient in computers anymore because I don't use them every day. I use them every day, but I don't work on them every day. So, that's, I'm just saying that.
but eventually these guys are gonna have to.
Not necessarily.
I don't think so.
Well, then we're gonna spend
We'll spend-
thousands and thousands of more dollars to have this guy come in every year if we don't train these guys to do it.
Possibly.
Thousands.
But it depends upon how much more you gotta add to it each time.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know.
Depends on the size of the subdivision.
So I would like to know the towns that actually did it and see what they compare on their size. Then you could get a rough estimate, right? If you say Hallsville did it, you know their town's 1,000, whatever they have.
I think we need to just move on with this and get a contract and get it done.
I just,
There was Hunter and Shiflin and TSE, which is Tri-State.
because I believe these guys did it.
Well,
I believe that these guys.
I
We
believe-
don't doubt that they can do it,
I have no doubt that these guys are smart enough to be able to do it.
but when are they gonna have time?
But they don't have the time and they don't have the time to do it on a consistent basis to be good at it.
You don't have to do it consistently.
Yes,
What
you
do
do.
you- Why do you have to do it consistently? We've been without this system for 100 years since this town's been. Why do you have to consistently do it? You can do it when you get time, when you get, a few minutes here and there.
What's everybody else think? Should we move on with the proposal that Lynn's got? Catherine?
With the shape arm.
I would like to get an answer from
Let me,
Mark and Mike and Phil.
Let
Let's
me
get
throw
their
in-
input in on it.
when we had the leak down here, there's no water line. The problem was with this old water line that nobody knew was there, and I talked to Joe Bryce
And
and
this
Dave.
guy's gonna know what's there?
No,
He's not gonna know.
Are you gonna finish?
this is the situation that we're in because it was never mapped.
Mhm.
I mean, everybody always said Howard Burton, and he died, took everything in his head with him. And some of that's been true because we found, like this main down there, Joe Bryson, they told me he thought he remembered running actually into this line, doing some digging forward, didn't hit it, tear it up or anything, but he'd seen it. And that's the first person I've come across that's even known anything about that area with it. That's why we had so much trouble shutting it off. Everything I tried to shut off, it didn't affect us. I still don't know where it goes. We need to find that out, yeah.
Like the one
It
down-
goes that way, but I don't know how to
Looks
shut
like
it
the
off.
one here on the corner, right? Or right?
Well, yeah, we had a line down here,
We
they
didn't know how
put a
to
new
shut it.
line in, but the old one was still tied in. Why it was still tied in, I don't know. I don't know how they did that.
And just because they mapped that, just like you said, just because you mapped that doesn't mean that you're gonna go in there and say, okay, this is the shut off.
It sure
But it
gonna-
might not.
It sure
Shut
gonna help
off.
knowing it's there if I'm digging.
Yeah, but you're not,
And it's just like the sewers, it's gonna
You
know
know the
that
shit.
that flow line is such and such depth.
you know where these lines are better than this guy that's coming in. You know where all these shut offs are better than anybody that could come out from outside of town and show where they're at.
That's true, and
And
they,
this guy right here knows where these are.
that's true. But he's also got records of where a lot of that stuff is that he knows of.
And I've been pretty injury prone here lately, so something may happen, but I'm not here too, so.
And that's the biggest thing I'm thinking of sitting here is, especially the fire department, the more and more we're putting underground. And exactly, I mean, I know exactly where it is
And
where it's
you'll
going.
map it every time you put one in.
Yeah, you know, we're drawing it in on the plats that we get, like for Cobblestone Lake Estates out there, you know.
Yeah.
But
And don't laugh about this,
And-
but some of my old maps that I've got
Mhm.
were measured off an X in the sidewalk, here and here. Well, that sidewalk's long, well, they measured off the trees, the tree's long gone, I mean, that's just the way they used to do it now. maybe 100 years from now, this will all be obsolete too.
Yeah,
But-
that's exactly what I'm saying.
If we got good basis to go off of, and it shows me where that valve is when Phil goes to paving and the crew comes in and they're in a hurry, they cover up a manhole and a valve, I can go back to that tension, and say, there's that valve right there, and it'd be right on, where some of this other locating stuff is not that accurate.
And when Midland came and visited one time, one of the best things that I liked about it was what they call the truck book. And each truck would have a book of the map. I mean, and it was as detailed as you wanted to get it, depending on how much you wanted to pay. But especially for the locators now, I mean, it's almost every day we get a locate request, somebody's digging somewhere in this town. And, you know, as we go on and put more stuff in, and was this guy on that job when those lines were installed, and we think it's here, but, I mean, you look at that map, and it's got an overlay of the satellite picture of the subdivision, and exactly where those primary lines are, and it's just gonna be the accuracy and the
Quick reference.
and, yeah, the reference that you have, and knowing that it is correct, and you're not just relying on, you know, me 20 years from now, and I'm here, and
Well, the same way
Jeff
with
here,
them.
Same way with
who's
me.
here.
And Ronnie, now, they
Not even here.
They
It
might
doesn't
not-
matter who picks up that book, you pick up that book, and you know it's
They
there.
might not be here.
They won't be, but the GIS will be with all that information and all their knowledge.
That they could put in. That they could put in.
I mean,
No.
but what
It
we're
won't
on
work.
the map is not GPS.
It will not
accurate.
work that way.
We
It
take our
would take
tape
them
measures.
months
and-
and years to get the information these guys are gonna get in on one contract. Because they don't have the time to devote to doing this.
And I would
They
tell
They
you
don't sit
that.
around on their
It's
thumbs.
not something you can do in your spare time.
And I would say, I mean, our department doesn't have the time to do that.
What would you like an answer to,
We've
Kim?
got plenty of.
Well, I wanted to
maintenance
know
ongoing.
if the gentleman would have time to work on it as Ferris is suggesting, and they just clearly stated, no, they don't have time to devote to it. So, and I also heard an endorsement for Midland from Mark, and then that was echoed by Mike. Bill hasn't said a whole lot.
It's actually not involved me at all yet, because
Eventually
my
storm
storm
sewer.
sewer is not involved, so, I mean, I wish it was, because I go out and do locates, and I've gotta pop lids, because I don't even know where some of the storm sewer goes, it's it's been in the ground so long. And I gotta
And
figure out.
eventually, that's something that would be added, but it won't be added on this contract.
If it's some storm sewer I hadn't put in, some of it, I don't even have a clue where it runs under the ground. So sometimes it's a guess.
The other thing is,
addition, once the base mapping is done, it can be made to tie into the county, so it'll be automatically updated when we give them subdivisions and they add it to the base map, it automatically shows up. Whoever does it, hopefully, will be tied into the county GIS. But gas can be added, storm sewer can be added, police incident reports and locations can be added, fire incidents and ambulance calls can be added, each has their own separate layer.
Cemetery.
Cemetery can be incorporated into it, otherwise we're gonna have to buy an updated software package for the cemetery, because they don't maintain that particular software anymore. It's, it's like Windows 10, you're not gonna get anybody to support Windows 3 anymore, or whatever it was. Zoning, is a matter of simplicity, can be added to the layer. I don't ever see us doing quite as much as some big cities do, which is, depending on the state, they can track parcel values codes, and they can say what's the value of something within a 1,000-foot radius or something like that. They're economic development tools that are probably way too sophisticated for what we're ever going to need, no matter who supplies the basic information in the software. It is a tool that can be added, it's like a drill. You can put all sorts of things on the end to bore holes, or just a regular drill, or, there's a lot of bits that can go on drill. There are a lot of tools that can be added to this tool. That being said,
Well, based on what the gentleman said, I recommend that we go with Midland, where we know what we're going to get when we're done, and we're not throwing away money on a system that will probably have to be redone. That's
Yeah.
my recommendation.
John, what's your thoughts?
I would have a tendency to lean toward Lynn's suggestion and go ahead and go with that option.
Landon?
What, so this Midland is 78,000, what's the maintenance fee? How much is that? Annual maintenance fee, how much?
4,000?
4,000
Yes, sir.
every year?
Yeah, and you'll get that no matter which kind of software you do, except for the open source, and then you don't have a guarantee of any maintenance. Okay,
So, say we go to add another, the field stuff,
You'll take more field work.
and then what is that? Is that,
That would be,
Another $70,000.
You'll request it, and bring it back to the board.
Exact.
No, it should not be anywhere near that.
Yeah.
now the books like
Might
Mark said,
be on the order of 12, 13, 15, depending on the data set. I mean, probably, yes, we could get the data set from Ameren.
In the long run, we probably could hire someone to do this all the time and have him do it, one person do it all the time. And
You're gonna hire a person at, what, $40,000-$50,000 a year, and you think they're gonna come out ahead after several years?
And once they get good at it, they're gonna be fair game for somebody else to hire.
somebody else to hire,
Right, from
and then it'll be all done.
And then we'll be back to square one, we'll have to hire somebody else to pick up where they left off.
Well, no offense to these guys, but there's some things that you can contract out cheaper on an hourly rate. I'm gonna bet that you couldn't hire somebody to get done for the city with what you can contract out on this. No offense, guys.
But we don't know that information, for sure.
I do.
Where did you get that information?
No,
That's
I've
what I'm
been
asking
surveying
you.
for 30 years, I know.
But you've never done a GIS. You can say surveying all you want to. I wish you quit yelling at me. I'm asking questions, and that's my job, is to ask questions.
Okay.
And it's not, I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm trying to ask questions to try to save money. We're fiscally responsible for this town. It says it right behind the mayor. We're fiscally responsible to fix this town.
This is the most fiscally responsible.
You don't know that. Lynn has not checked into it because we didn't check into it. You don't know that it's fiscally responsible. You don't know that we can't hire somebody to do it.
Ryan, what's your thoughts? You still haven't answered.
I mean, yeah, I'm for Midland, I think, I don't know.
What was your question about the?
I mean, yeah, the books, are they extra? Because Mark said each truck gets a book, are they,
And I
In
don't know,
this-
each truck, I don't know about, I mean, we got a lot of trucks, maybe it'd be in each department.
each department, is
Yeah,
that extra out of the
I'm not sure how that
78,000,
fits
or
into
is
the-
that?
How many books you get.
How about this, why don't you just have a Midland guy come in and we can ask him all the questions, he can give it to us.
That's a good idea.
He gives a good presentation.
And then we can
explain
get it from there.
I think you'd be much more comfortable if he did for this kind of money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
We can have him come in.
yeah.
What about the other guy? Why can't we have him come in? Also.
I'm really not interested in doing open source after talking to David about it.
Well, I am. I'm part of the council. I would like to see it.
I don't care.
Midland's coming from Maryville, we can bring the guy in. The other one from Horner Shiflin, Shiflin,
Yeah.
the guy making the contract is out of job for him, but they have somebody working up here we could probably stop in. They're doing sanitary sewer treatment work at Mexico. If I can arrange a time with Midland, I will invite the other guy too. Is that fair?
Yes.
But it won't be the guy that's over in Mexico doing it, probably it'll be somebody that's dedicated to GIS in there. Well, I don't know what that might be.
Yeah, it'll be probably Jared Casey from, Tri-State Engineer.
Okay. I'll get on that and I'll try and give them lead time and not do it in the middle of the holidays, so I'll, no, it's still the 3rd of January next month.
I mean, we're in no big hurry for this, are we?
What could we have?
This current fiscal year, but it could be postponed even then. I just would like to get it started because there are a couple of things that follow on this after the fact. Where having this information available would make other engineering cheaper. I don't know if asking to come January is too much or not.
Why don't you have them come in 2 weeks?
At the regular.
Yeah.
one come in next week and one come in the following week.
Is that okay?
No, to be perfectly honest, we've had some times when people have bid trash trucks, for instance, and one person's been able to attend and one person has not.
Okay.
And they send their best and brightest salesman and we've bought something that,
Okay. No,
yeah.
that's fine.
I would prefer them both to be in the same room, not making claims that the other guy knows is wrong.
Okay.
So,
That sounds good.
I'll try for the regular board meeting and see what I can accomplish.
Are we gonna set a time limit on how long they, I mean, cause this is something that could go on for.
Oh, yeah,
You know?
when I've been at pool meetings, it's been an hour.
Yeah. Well, that's what this guy was, I think he was an hour and a half at the,
And I probably Phil doesn't need to attend, but I would like Mike and Mark to be at that meeting too then. So they can ask legitimate question. I mean,
Yeah.
the question of the truck book, I would imagine one copy is a deliverable. After that,
Might charge for printing them off or something.
We could probably get them printed off or something.
Well, yes.
You know, take them to regional
Well, once
graphics or
all of
something.
this stuff is in this GIS,
Something
you
they could give you on
you
a
can
disc,
print out
and
a
then
lot of
if you want a
information.
book, take it somewhere and
the thing we wouldn't be able to do on a regular basis is plot large scale maps. What we could probably, because this software is based in Maryville, but it works through the cloud, and we could probably access it from Mr. Borman's office and have his printer print out something if we ever needed a large map
yes.
scale. Plotters are terribly expensive, and I certainly wouldn't want to get into that in the next 10 years. No point in it.
Okay.
All right.
All right, next up. Oh, under electric department, anything else? Okay, next is the water department, we have an activity report. See, you had a meeting with the district, Ken?
They're just looking at doing some upgrades on some lines, and they're trying to check on conflicts, maybe with what we've already got in the ground, and bypassing us going east of town.
Okay.
So they're just trying to figure out what would be best for them, size-wise, and where to run the line if they decide to do that. And feasibility of doing it.
Please just say yes to the call.
I finish one line now.
That might not fly with it very well.
So the 20-meter lids that didn't read, do we need to replace them? Do we have them in stock?
Actually, they're gonna be delivered this week. I was about out, and I'm gonna talk to Lynn this week, and if there's any need to order any more, our price is good through the end of the year before it goes up. John, if you remember that meeting that he was at, he was talking about that, where he kind of prorated those out to a certain price. I may see about getting some more on order just to have. This is
Were
the
they-
largest amount that we've had in probably the last 4 or 5 months. We've only been having 10 and 11. Some of these were some of the original batch that went bad right now.
Were they, price-wise, were they a whole difference?
We're talking probably $4 or $5 on radio more if we wait till after the first year. But I go ahead and get several
Yeah,
heads up, so.
Yeah.
and we'll need them sooner or later, so.
Okay.
If there is any charge, or if I decide I need it, I'll have Lynn let you all know at the next meeting.
Sounds good. You handed out cold weather rule notices?
We did.
Do disconnects because of the temperatures, so.
A couple days ago, that was 29 or 20,
I
so.
thought we were under the cold weather rule.
We're not, well,
We're not obligated, but we try.
they may have passed legislation that tangentially brings us under, but you passed part of the reg that said that we voluntarily are doing
Why?
that.
I thought we didn't do that.
No, we didn't.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we waited until Wednesday, and we only had 2 on the list by then.
Yeah, by the time it was, I actually turned them off, there's only 2 left. I'm not even sure anybody was living in at least one of those.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have our MPDES permit for the water plant backlog.
Well, just to let you know that in October, the discharge permit that's required on putting stuff back into the lakes and streams of Missouri, the one that goes to the outfall from the water treatment plant with the backwash line sludge and all that, that permit is up in October of next year. And we probably ought to start in the next couple months to do that. Unlike the sewer treatment plant, there is a reasonable chance that if we just look at the last application and do a little tweaking in-house, that we would not have to hire any outside aid. We need to find it and take a look, but it's a pretty straightforward permit and nothing has changed.
Okay.
So all we gotta do is update quantities more or less, and that's, and send it in. There'll be probably a $200 permit fee, and it'll probably take them forever to do it, which is why we ought to start after the first of the year. If it turns out we have to have outside assistance to make the application, I'll bring it back to you.
Okay. Next, renew maintenance agreement for hack water analysis. I know we've dealt with it before.
Yeah, this is, the contract is up. They check our analyzers in the basement. They check for turbidity, chlorine, pH, and then the controller will send it to the computer, which keeps records, so we've got it, DNR ever asked for anything. By letting them do this, this is kind of what we've been talking about. Their name attached to this, DNR cannot come to us if we're maintaining this contract and keeping these things calibrated correctly. So as long as we do this, it's just another coverage for us, make sure that everything's good through that. And our figures that we're turning in for our samples, for our daily rates and stuff, everything is where it needs to be, so.
Otherwise, it's our responsibility, they will know how we know that it's calibrated.
If something's wrong with calibration and we're not doing it right, it comes back to us. Otherwise, with this contract, PAC has to maintain it, so they would be responsible.
As a site, having these measurements goes a long way to keeping DNR off our back about not having to have somebody 24/7 out at the plant.
This has probably been the one thing that's probably saved us on that, by having this and the alarms at the police station.
Yeah. And having, now that the technology allows for machine sampling, it's a hell of a lot more accurate than sitting there with titration and test tubes.
And to be honest, once again, this is probably over our head for what we can, we can calibrate and change the tubes, but that's about it. When it starts getting that machine dialed in, we've watched him, we've tried to help him. Every 6 months is not gonna be often enough for us to do that and get it right.
Yeah, 5 people now. I don't know whether you want to.
You want to approve that tonight, or do you want?
This is good through December 30th, so I'd kinda like to get this, at least call and say that I think it's gonna be okay.
You want to do this on the 21st and, just
Yeah, I would prefer, I think we did it by ordinance last time, didn't we? It's a contract, and so we ought to do it by ordinance.
Does anybody have a problem with this?
What's the cost?
25.
26,
25.88.
25.88.
Yeah.
He's actually coming Wednesday to do the calibrations and stuff, and I'll talk to him about it then and let him know what
Okay.
what the time period might be.
I'll make a motion.
No, not tonight,
tonight.
you'll have to go through and have more,
Yeah, we're gonna do it.
but we need to know whether we're in agreement on this.
That's full meeting.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
We'll be on the 17th.
John, Brandon, okay with this?
Yeah.
Okay. Put this on the 21st,
17th.
17th.
Yeah.
Okay. Other, under water and sewer, anything else?
New trucks in, they're gonna pick it up tomorrow, California, bring it in, do the bed lining, and should be here, ready to go Wednesday.
Yes.
Pardon me, where does the water plant, where would the water plant discharge if it discharged?
Okay, the ponds are here, there's a creek that runs by the teardrops, and those ponds goes to that creek. There's basically just an outfall structure off of one of the ponds and a ditch that goes to those creeks, which is why there's such an elaborate segmented pond system, so that it all drops to the bottom of the first ponds, and by the time it gets to that outfall, there's very little lime in it. It's very much akin to just regular treated water, but just enough, and we have to monitor it, and then we require the permit.
Just so I'm clear and don't really goof this up, which I might anyway, this discharge has absolutely positively nothing to do with the no discharge system that you're evolving toward in the city wastewater and dying beavers and all that stuff.
Right.
That is correct. That is a totally separate permit.
And the reason we have to have this permit is because it is a named
No,
creek.
The reason we have to have it is because DNR says we gotta have it.
any discharge
And when
requires
it goes
permit.
across 22 there, where it goes to what, the country club there? Is that where it is?
Well, it ends up in Young's Creek, I believe.
Ends up Mark Twain.
No, it's just east of the sale barn and goes by Chet's Trailer Court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goes
And
out
then,
to Blankville.
then eventually out by the sewer lagoons and ties into the creek that it goes by Gooser's Farm.
On the backside.
It would end up in the same place where the sewer treatment plant.
Yeah.
And since we made it to a whole other summary, the ponds are essentially empty at the moment. We should be,
We need the rain though.
true, that's true. Which is why, we'll talk about that in a little bit, which is why we're continually trying to do infiltration, so if it rains heavy, it doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that all under other than?
That's all I've got.
Okay.
Well, just to mention that both the electric and water crews are furiously working to get the utility lines in for Country Club Estates Part 2. And it is likely that we'll have all the paperwork done where they will come in and request approval of final plat at the regular board meeting.
Okay.
Cobblestone Lakes Estates Plat 2.
Okay. Next up, is Public Works. We have an activity report in our packet. Anybody have any questions on the activity report?
Seems like a lot of dumpsters from the street sweeper.
That's like a once a year thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That the leaves?
All the leaf debris, everything we sweep up, and then there may be a few other things, you know, we're doing a little digging or we get some junk collected, it gets thrown in there, so, yeah, it's,
Okay.
but, yeah, it's usually just once a year deal.
All right.
So the street sweeper being used now.
So working well?
Yes.
Next up, we have bids for replacement of shop heaters at the street barn. And we had a discussion about this last time.
And Phil went and did some research.
Yeah, Lynn said y'all had some questions, you know, about some of the other options and stuff, and I called, talked to two of the guys who bid on the heaters, and, you know, asked them about, you know, infrared or, you know, some other options, and neither one of them recommended infrared for my shop for the height of the ceilings, and as often as we open the doors, they said it won't recover, because he says the infrareds are nice right underneath them, or if you don't open your doors very often. He said, as much as we have to open our doors in and out for doing the cardboard and everything else, he says they just don't recover. He said he would recommend, and he said price-wise, he says they're not gonna be that much cheaper installation because we're gonna do new gas lines, new electric. By the time we wreck out the other ones and patch the roof, and he says it's gonna be a pretty similar cost. Now efficiency, he said, yeah, they're probably gonna be a little more efficient, but they're gonna run all the time. So he said it may not be.
So you lose your efficiency by the amount of time that they run.
Yeah, so he says, yeah, it kind of depends, you know, it's gonna depend from building to building.
Mhm.
He says just, because they've both been over and worked on our other heaters, so I mean, they know how often we're in and out, and he says he just wouldn't recommend it in that, he would go with what we've initially, bid out.
And I did take a look, because I promised Landon, and,
It's got a ceiling.
huh?
It's got a ceiling.
Yes.
Yeah, no, but you wanted to know how much we were paying, and,
Yeah, the ceiling. I think,
basically, there's only about 4 months a year where the gas bill is up significant. There's always about a $30 bill because
Water heaters.
water heater.
Yeah.
But, it's on the order of $250 or $300 for the coldest months as a net.
And you don't leave those on 24 hours a day.
No, usually at night and some weekends, we turn them down to about 60. And then we'll turn them up about 68 or something. We don't ever, because, I mean, we don't want that warm in there anyhow in winter. We've got, you know, coveralls and stuff on in and out, so.
Yeah.
I'd say very seldom does it ever get up to 70 unless it's like so cold out there and we're trying to get it warm up in there, but. You know, most of the time they're on like about 65, 68 area.
All three of these heaters have the exact same warranty, they're the exact same heaters.
Two of them are the exact same brand, one of them's just a different brand, so, but they're all the exact same BTU, or 75,000 BTU heaters.
Warranty, same warranty,
Yeah.
same
They're
everything.
all by local people, so it's
Yeah, I knew that.
easy, yeah.
Didn't know about the warranties, if maybe if it had, the reason, that one was so much more, the one was so much more, was because it had a better warranty or what?
I think the warranty was all pretty much the same on all of them, from what I understood. And just, the brand of them, I think that's the brand he uses is just a little bit higher.
Mm.
All right, so do we need to go with one or two of these?
I thought we were gonna go with one this fiscal year and one next fiscal year. Is that what we planned?
That was the original. We'll talk about budget in a few minutes, but I'm now of a mind in this 6, 11 and a half dozen the other, and you might as well go ahead and get both sorted out.
It doesn't, you
Yeah.
don't.
It would be nice doing both, that way if we bid them out again, we're not getting two different brands.
Right.
So every time, if I need to work on it, I have to call two different people.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That'd be the way to go, I think.
I think we probably ought to get both of them, if you think we should, it's within the budget now.
Things can change, but right now, it looks to me like there should be,
I'd say it is, the chipper was under budget.
well, it comes from a different
Different
fund.
fund.
Yeah,
But
different pot of money.
we can charge it to this, I'm good with that.
I'm not.
Everyone always is.
Till I put toll roads up, it's all coming out like.
All right,
General.
do you want us to approve this tonight then?
I mean, the weather's nice this
Can
next
we?
week, so.
I would.
We don't need an ordinance for this, do we?
No.
Okay.
In fact, for just one, it would almost be within our purview to order
Right.
as maintenance item anyway, but I suggest two. I think that the way the year is working out, it will make a difference either way.
Do I hear a motion?
Yes, sir. I move we approve the purchase of 2 heaters from Hancock Heating for $2,800.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay,
All right,
good.
thank you very much.
All right, stay warm.
Before you need them.
All right, next up, sanitation. Anything on sanitation?
Lots of trash. We had some issues with the trash truck, but we got all that. We had the transmission quit working, the ECM went out of it, the older one, not the new one. And then the PTO and the hydraulic pump had to get replaced. When, for some reason, when one goes out, it takes the other one out. Don't know which one went out first, but for some reason on them trucks, when one goes, it'll take the other one. Doesn't happen very often, but they say when it does, it'll tear them both out. And we had to have both those replaced, so. Have not got the bill on that one, so.
All right, storm sewer.
Not much going on there right now.
Hasn't been much rain.
No.
Any other public works? All right, next we have other preliminary budget discussion.
This is very preliminary because I haven't gotten November data yet. We'll have 4 months beyond that, but I know where most of the big ticket items are coming from or will be coming from and have good prices on now. Next Monday, I will meet with the union representative and I'll have a better idea of how and if there are any effects on the budget coming from the union request. And I will probably put a closed session at the end of next Monday's meeting so that I can pass those requests along to the board.
Next week's?
Next
Or
week.
the following week?
Next week's.
Okay.
Did they get a raise last year?
Yes.
Uh,
27th.
In the negotiations, could you tell them it's time for the alderman's raise, it's our turn, that they need to wait a year?
I can tell them that.
All right, just
I
pass that along in the negotiations.
We're gonna
I
have
think
to,
it's been longer since
we have
had
to dock you
raises
for
since
30
they had
minutes,
raises.
being late though.
You know, there's a little bit more there that'd be worth docking.
Okay.
Not from not.
Anything else on the budget list?
Oh, yeah,
Look from turn.
I will go through fund by fund and give you an overview, at least of where it stands now. Utilities can circulate a lot depending on the weather and that sort of thing, but water department is looking good, principally because our major customer used a whole bunch more water than normal. I think they'll probably take steps to not do that a second year in a row, but frankly,
Was that a
week,
leak?
that was an extra 50,000 in revenue above projections. And the marginal cost of producing a gallon of water treated is pretty small. I mean, you have a lot of fixed costs in a plant and that sort of stuff, but the marginal costs are primarily power and light, and a little goes a long way. So most of that extra consumption went right into the bank account. And because of that, for the water department, even if we drop back to consumption at the levels predicted, I can't see an ongoing need for next year to have a rate increase.
Okay.
What I do see us doing is, well, we're buying his truck this year. We did a transfer to the general fund this year. We would do a similar transfer of 30,000 next year. We have money set aside for well repair, and it's not likely that we're going to, we can't foresee the need to do any well repair, but we'll budget as if one of them had to be pulled and totally redone. And then, and the other two wells that'll be well number 6, because it's fully reserved right now anyway. And we'll do the annual adding to the reserves on 3 and 4. And so that will show up as 50,000 available for repair and 37,500 as the cumulative reserve on the other two, because they're holding up so well now. that we used to reserve over 5 years, and now it's up to 7 instead. Because it just being maintained.
Been how many years since we had to redo one of those?
Well,
3
4.
years?
Well, so we just
Actually, 3.
did 3 completely over,
Yeah.
upsized it and did it.
Oh,
4,
and build it deeper and everything?
Right.
Okay.
and 4 has probably been 5 years on 4.
Okay. I put a pretty good chunk in. We're likely to have to do almost a total replacement. That's worst case scenario anyway, of the pontoon and the pumps and drive shaft and everything on the lime sludge pump. So I'm putting aside 30 as a contingency on that. It needs to be done fairly quickly, but we don't know how much can be salvaged and how much has to be replaced. It's a hard work environment, and there's not much you can do after a while.
Will that be in next year's budget?
That will be in next year's budget. Next year's budget will also include replaced. What we'll do is buy a new backhoe. The current backhoe being used by the water department will be handed down to Phil's, which is a former hand-me-down anyway, will be used as a trade-in, because in the case of Case, they usually do give us a pretty good trade-in allowance on that. Phil's getting to where it's really wobbly and it does need to be replaced, but it's always the water department that needs to keep the most recent and usable backhoe, because it can be used in emergency situations where the one that would be using for street ditch cleaning, stuff like that, is not as critical.
Right.
So with the trade-in, that's likely to be about $73,000. We'll continue to have the $100,000 reserve for plant repairs. Don't think it'll be needed, but it'll be there in case there's an emergency. You gotta be able to have that in the bank and not go looking for these purchase arrangements and that sort of thing. And we have 3 more doors on the water plant, but they're all small, and I think we can do all 3 of them for about $2,800. It's not nearly a deal as the big doors on the.
And as far as instrumentation, we're all about good?
We're in pretty good shape on everything right now. Small pH meters and stuff might be something that you're only talking about $600 tops on that. And I don't think they're in that bad shape. Randy bought one about 2 years ago, and may have to give you to probe the sensor part of it, but other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape. All of them in basement are still pretty
Have
good.
they completed all that tie-in on your sensor work?
Got one more meter put in, but we had to shut chances off, and we're trying to work that schedule out with them and make sure the valve's gonna do it, so.
Okay. That's all been proceeding pretty well then?
Yeah, everything went real well on the schedule part of it, and going with that, so.
That just, even with a very comfortable balance, otherwise, I'm looking at about $60,000 in system improvements for Cobblestone Lake and other places this year. Probably about 70-something will be available for that, and still leave a very comfortable carryover, plus those reserves I talked about. It's not targeted to anything particular. We can do whatever comes up on the targets of opportunity under the supervised construction plan. We can upgrade some pipes, we can add valves where they've gone bad, which is what Mike wants to focus on. But there's more money to buy materials than we have time and equipment to do anything with.
Well, and we're not likely to do very many more big subdivisions until the town became.
No, not like that. I mean, we'll do additional plats maybe on this bridge and the other, but that, not a large undertaking. The most likely main construction on our own that would be new would be starting to go from the water tower on the east side north along Pratt Street to tie in with the pipe that we have in a casing pipe on Highway 22. which would give us better pressure and service on either direction north of Highway 22. That's just a matter of whether we have time and the weather stays on our side. But valves will come first.
Has there been any further development on locations for that new water tower, third water tower?
It's not available yet. I still would recommend the site that I was thinking about at first, but, I think the family situation will have to change.
Okay. That's good. That's all I need to know. Thanks.
Where would that be? What was your recommendation?
Out near the Scott barn. There's a very swampy area, a swale area between that log cabin and the bus barn. And you could, it's not really developable for things like commercial needs or residential. So it could be purchased separate from the farm when it comes time for the farm to be on the market. Now its price, and it would be a future site for a water tower in the right location, and possibly a future site for another substation, electric substation. Neither are on our long, 5 years, 6 years out, but having the land nailed down when it becomes available would be appropriate.
Yeah.
It would be a good
This
investment.
is real long term.
Very long.
Right.
It depends on whether we get major new business or industry north of the side of Highway 22. And the alternate site, if growth goes in a different direction, for electric substation would be the acre we own down in our chance. That was the site of well number 5 before it got abandoned. That would be more than adequate, it's right underneath the high voltage terminal. And so we're going to be adding a lot of flexibility.
Okay.
Talk about the acre out on the east side of town.
Yeah, yeah. Adjacent to Cobblestone Lake, but outside the city limits, and immediately adjacent to the No Chance Drive. Nice square area.
Square acres are nice.
Yeah.
Well, see the measure.
Okay.
I got one on the SCADA system, I wanted to, you asked about that.
Okay.
During the leak, it told us that that thing actually broke about 10:23 that night. And the plant stayed with that leak as it was going until about 6:30 the next morning when it was reported. And that was about the time we really started to drop. The people were starting to use water.
Right.
And then once we started filling, it showed us how and where that water was going and how quick. And that told us what valves we need to open up, maybe catch up on the west side of town. It was very helpful. And
What's the brand of that? Is that Siemens or kind of SCADA system?
it's not Siemens.
A little of this and a little of that, isn't it? It's not all the same brand.
It's Motorola on the radio.
Right, on
It's-
radio equipment's on Motorola, but
I'm trying to think.
is that?
I can't, right off the top of my head, think
No,
what
that's
it
fine.
is.
It didn't go down enough to, alarm, police
Not until
department,
that, about the
morning.
time that they called it in, they started calling.
People started using, and waking up, whatever.
Yeah, that's what's really started putting the draw on. Through the night, it was able, and if you look in the ditch now, you can see how much blew out of there, because it had some pressure behind it. But
Well-
SCADA did a good job, and it really was very helpful through the night, knowing where we're at, and how quick we were filling.
Water system SCADA is another thing we talk about internally. There are more controls and measuring devices that can be added to the water plant because it's getting old and parts are not as readily available, they're obsolete, frankly. But in reviewing it with Mike and Mark, it did not appear that doing that phase 2 was appropriate for next year. It might be appropriate the year after or the year after that. We'll just continue to monitor things. It's not there's no emergency, but eventually, when something like that, it's likely that it will cascade and you need to end up just doing a complete wholesale replacement instead of trying to piecemeal it.
Okay.
but that's not, it won't be in this coming budget.
It'll be several years down the road.
I think they'll get that far, because right now, with what the skate is doing, he says he can replace the motor drive or something if it goes out and get it pretty quick. I think we'll be okay.
Okay, sewer, I thought was going to be a lot worse than it's turning out to be. We did those emergency plant repairs, namely the road out to the second road, and we did irrigation repairs to some pivots. And we still realized some extra revenue again because of the water sales to our major water customer, so it helped a little. More work has been done in the water side of Mike's department than the sewer side, so a lot of payroll expense got put in the water side, and that's contributed to what so far appears to be a relatively healthy balance compared to the break even that we were projecting. One thing we haven't spent yet is the $35,000 for in situ form or somebody else to do slope lining on the mains, starting about here and working our way down the alleys towards Jefferson Street. They haven't had a crew in the area to justify them giving us the piggyback price off of the independent's bid. Whether that's going to get done before spring, I don't know, if necessary to carry over, but that's sort of an ongoing project for several years, and it looks to me like we have the capacity to be able to do even more of that next year, either merging the 2 years or taking them independently. It looks like at least $55,000 should be available for slip lining next year. That's still not what Mike's figuring. It really needs to be done long term, but it will get us there. It will help us build up the reserves a little towards keeping money in the bank for pump repairs and stuff like that. And the other NPDES permit will come due in 2014. That's the one for the sewer system. That one will have to be in a few months before, 6 months before it's up. And that means we gotta start in the coming fiscal year with the engineering and the application. We haven't asked for quotes yet. I would suggest we go to Mr. Cunningham and get a quote before I lock down the budget. But the engineering to prepare an application, we're talking 10,000 or less, we're not talking major expense, but that is an application that will definitely have to be done by an engineer.
Right. And we'll also have to do a few repairs or work on the system, trying to remove our pipe or cap it or whatever, so we can go to a truly non-discharge.
I'm sure they would like that, and we'll make some changes dealing with some other parts of the operation. And we'll be able to incorporate into the application the new pivots that the farmers have added since the previous application was put in. Anyway, something that it doesn't trigger immediate expenditures except for the engineering. That engineering has to be contracted and started about this time next year in order to be finished available 6 months ahead of when the permit comes out. If we get it in on time and DNR takes their time doing the approval, then there aren't any consequences to us any more than there were last time. We picked up another 6 or 9 months.
Yeah. Lynn's hoping to be out of here, is what he's hoping.
When does the permit require, is that for January first of 2014,
No, it's not.
July.
July of 2014?
So you'll be done.
Almost. Anyway, again, the sewer, originally, I had thought that we would have another continuing small ratchet up on, because even a 5% raise on a very small base is a very small increment of the revenue, and be able to add a supplement. Mike's, I'm starting to lean against that, because I think that the way Congress is going, my crystal ball as an economist says, we're gonna have another recession, and the economy is not going to do well, and now's not the time to raise rates on anything we don't have to.
Are we going to have to buy a piece of property or rent a piece of property for some application?
Not,
If we go with the no discharge?
no, I don't think so. I think that
Barring flood, I think we'll be okay. Because
we're
farmers
able
added
to,
more pump power and additional pivots, I think we're gonna even out.
the farmers adding more
Thanks,
land.
empty right now, right? Never mind.
We have gotten permission for the understanding that we can put more water on the overland flow.
Right.
And unless and until all those subdivisions are built out and somebody adds a major chunk of this water to the sewer system, we're actually working in ways to diminish the flow of water to our system. Not to say that you get 3-inch rain overnight, that we don't have a slug load out there, but
Right.
right now we have lots of pre-work, so it's not an issue. And I'm assured the weatherman is predicting another dry year, which means we'll probably have record rains.
But, I mean.
I do not project buying another piece of land at this time. It will not be in my budget proposal.
All right, okay. Sounds good.
Electric. I project another 80,000 for transfer to the general fund. I would include an ordinary principal and interest for debt service on this electric substation. We would add about 50,000 to the depreciation reserve just by the formula that we've been doing. It's really just a part of what I would anticipate a bank account to be. Right now, I'm looking at the numbers of having 300,000 in the bank at the end of the year, plus another 750,000 or thereabouts as depreciation reserve. That still gives us no reason for any increases in rates. Until the contracts are up, I don't foresee that. Those reserves can fluctuate by $100,000 or more depending on the weather we have and when that weather comes and how people might get involved in running the air conditioners or that sort of thing, but just normal growth is going to make a big change. So I think the electric fund's in good stead. The only other very minor expense in next year's budget would be to hire an architect or engineer to prepare a set of plans and specs for minor remodeling of City Hall roof, tuck point if needed, walls, wallpaper, carpet, the walls and the turrets so that it doesn't leak on the ceiling tiles anymore. A lot of minor stuff, some associated with ADA, which would then be, the actual work would be budgeted in the following fiscal year, so $10,000–12,000, more than sufficient for architect or engineer to put together that package. I don't see the need for trying to do it piecemeal. work, so that would be done just as one contract in 2015, but
Okay.
we can look at that when I go out and start trying to get proposals from architects.
Okay.
Okay.
You looking at replacing any of the Aldrin's computers?
That would be, that would be part of ordinary maintenance and stuff. Okay. I'm not looking at any new programs for any of these funds that I've talked about, other than what I described. Your computers would come out of the general fund, and we expanded the time
Okay.
for how long we should keep them, but frankly, if any of them go bad, they can be replaced, and we'll replace them as they go bad.
Okay.
That's not, they're not, drain on the resources.
Okay.
Not because they're not, if you're replacing all of them at one time,
Right.
it would be expensive, but
Okay.
right now, if Athens gave up the ghost, we'd probably do another iPad if you didn't mind.
I wouldn't mind at all. I love the tablet that I have.
Yeah, and so that would be the way we'd go.
Okay. Thanks.
I don't want one of these, I don't want one 5 days.
Okay, well, what will likely happen then, depending on the order they go bad,
Drop
if yours gives up the ghost first, we'll
Transfer.
give one over to you and replace hers
What do you
with
consider giving up the
yours.
ghost? What do you consider giving up the ghost? It's like going dead or
Yeah.
going super slow to where it takes me 5 minutes to get to something.
That shouldn't have anything to do with the, it should probably have more to do with software or what's on there than.
Mine need to be cleaned,
Yeah.
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 defrag.
I don't even take it home anymore, I use my own.
Let me make a note here and we'll have somebody look at it.
Okay.
Alright,
If it turns out that it's a hardware problem, not a software problem, we'll look at replacing it.
but my guess is that if it's coming up, it's probably the software.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
Um,
Never use.
Sanitation, sanitation fund, business as usual, looking at growth, no rate increase, looking at growth in revenue just because of new houses being constructed and adding a little bit each year. I'm looking at a final balance of 181,000, of which about 102 is the amount we need to keep in the bank to meet our obligations to DNR for post-closure care. So that's still almost 80,000, and the idea, remember, is to build up over the next 4 or 5 years to the point where when Bill's truck that just had the transmission problems needs to not be repaired anymore, we can buy a new truck, use the current truck as the hand-me-down.
What about trash trucks?
That's what he's talking about.
That's what he's.
Oh, okay, I thought you were talking about your person.
No, we're going to trash right now.
Yeah, each year we're trying to save as much as possible so that when the time comes, we will have cash in the bank to pay for
You
the
were just talking about one of them having problems.
Yeah, that's what we, that's the one we get rid of when we replace one. That's the oldest one that we just had some issues with.
Now, the cost of that transmission and PTO is not coming out of the sanitation fund, it's coming out of the equipment use fund. Remember, we put money aside per mile or per hour used, and the amount of money available in equipment use fund has actually been building up for the last few years, because the last time we set rates, gas was pushing $5 a gallon, and then it dropped back down, and we've been saving money there rather than trying to adjust in small increments, it does seem reasonable. So that will not have an effect on any of the operating budgets. And lastly, I think that Christine will be able to be out on the street right after the first of the year with the big package for Spencer and Jefferson Street. And until that happens, I honestly don't know exactly what it's gonna cost. It's just a guess based on square yardage of material on past projects, but by the time that
That's part of the recession.
we don't have any more debt service, you know, and, you know, unless the state passes a miraculous bond issue, all those people like APAC aren't going to have, they're still gonna be hungry as far as I can see. It looks like come September, we'll have just short of $250,000 available for that project, whatever it bids out at. And when we get the bids, we can judge accordingly. Target's likely, I may have a little bit of extra flexibility just because I've purposely estimated sales tax revenue to be small. And I haven't counted on anything from interest because there hasn't been any to make it worthwhile.
I suspect that's gonna stay the same.
But that's where that money will come. It'll come from the transportation sales tax fund.
No, that's not gonna affect fixing all the other streets that we're.
Oh, yes, it will.
Put in.
We'll do potholes and make basic maintenance.
So next year, we're only fixing 2 streets.
Yeah, 2 major streets with major repairs. After that is done, then we'll have a similar amount to devote each year for overlays. And my best guess would be that we could do most of the remaining streets that haven't gotten anything in the last 10 or 12 years. We can do most of the rest of them in 2.
Yeah, we'd do more, we'd over double what we'd be paving, we have been.
And not having that debt service that we had on Columbia's Lakeview makes a major difference, frees up a lot of money.
Right.
And we should be able to do not only overlays, but continue to do it. Sidewalk repair and ramps to make the ADA people have more accessible routes around town.
Are we still gonna work with the special road district using our own equipment? Is that the plan still? Is
Yeah, that kind of thing is,
Like I said, depends on this year or next year if there's any money available to do that or not.
I think there is a separate pot of money in the general fund for street materials. And that's what we used for the work that we did on our own as opposed to bidding out. And, it will depend on the cost of asphalt and what the need is, where we put that. It will assess it come summer. But we will do some of it. And we'll help the road district with some of theirs too.
Yes, Kathy.
We have a question. How are our supplies for winter maintenance on the streets?
I keep asking him that
I was
almost.
gonna say that question.
I mean, right now I can handle probably a couple big storms. I mean, I could squeeze a load of salt in, but I've got plenty of salt and calcium brook to get going. Right now, actually, our new truck and one of the spreaders is at Herndon's because they're just moving a bracket on the back where it hooks to the truck. Because the way it sits in this truck, it sticks out further because of the way the cylinder is on it. So we're just getting that modified a little bit to fit the truck and but just make sure everything's ready to go. We've been kind of just dragging our feet on it a little bit since it's been so nice. So.
Well, I'm not looking for or wanting that weather, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, we've got plenty of materials on hand, so that's not a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, guys.
We're not gonna use any of it, but we've got some.
It'd be nice
I
if
like
you
that.
that, what we don't use
Keep
on
it on
snow
hand.
removal tends to be available then for the kind of repairs Ferris was talking about, more short overlays and all the patching and stuff that we normally have to attend to each year.
Works out good then.
Now, last year we purchased 1 load of salt, and that was it. Some years we've done 4 loads, so it just, we'll wait till that first.
We'll get by with 1 load this year, but.
We'll wait till January and see what happens.
We won't need 4 either.
Ask me about April, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because interestingly enough, if you have temperate weather, you sometimes use more material. If you have it where it's fluctuating back and forth, below and above freezing, you get freeze and thaw, you need to ease more assault and cinders down to keep the traffic safe than if you had one big storm and it got cold and it just stayed cold.
Right.
You wouldn't need nearly as much material. But if it gets warm enough to thaw and spreads out again over the street, then you would need to redo it.
Mhm.
Well, hoping we have weather like this till February 28th.
We need a little bit of rain.
I'm talking temperatures.
Oh.
You know, our neighbor to the
I wouldn't
south,
hope
made
that much.
the national news, on NBC at least, they were talking about all the record highs, and one of them specifically listed was Columbia, Missouri, 74 today,
Yeah?
was a record high.
Wow.
And they got through a whole story without mentioning global warming. I was astonished.
Surprise.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
You don't like beaches.
That's it, those are the things I'm looking at for public utilities. There's some more stuff to do with public works that I'll take up next week when I've gotten a little bit farther in the general fund budget.
As may arise. Yes.
Lynn, did you get an email forwarded to you today about Senate Bill 13?
Ryan Fowler?
Yeah, you gotta be out of a job if it
I know.
passes. You might wanna talk to Kurt about it.
Yeah. Senate Bill 13 was introduced into the Senate, and it's a way to eliminate the solid waste management district. So
Which would mean
the money from the solid waste management fund that was previously allocated for grants to solid waste management districts will be allocated for grants to cities, counties, and providers of solid waste management, waste reduction, recycling, and related services. The percentage of money allocated for grants is reduced by the amount previously used for overhead and administration costs of solid waste management districts. The requirement that the solid waste management plan be submitted to the Department of Natural Resources is eliminated. So it affects the current tipping fees also. So,
How,
will that affect like the tire
We haven't
recycling
applied for a
stuff?
grant in a long time, but frankly, our operations haven't lent themselves to anything that would be an equipment grant. I mean, they don't buy trash trucks and stuff like that. We bought the compactor that's at the shop. That's been the major purchase we've done. Most of the rest of what the district's been doing has been educational projects.
and
Involved youngsters.
they have done some tire,
I was gonna say,
Shredding
does that affect the tire recycling and stuff they've come up there and done?
yeah.
Yeah.
Household hazardous waste collection points.
All that'd be gone, I guess,
Those be gone.
Well,
unless cities and counties decide.
But cities and counties will have to pick that up, yeah.
well, they'll presumably have to apply directly to DNR.
okay.
I
So,
assume.
so those kinds of things are being done by the district now? And
Yes.
The state takes that tipping fee percentage and allocates it to the district, and then the districts pick winners and losers among applicants within the district. What this will turn into, I presume, was a statewide competition,
I think so.
which means all the money goes back to.
Correct. Yeah, I just got it this afternoon, so if you're, do some more research on it, it's Senate Bill 13, you can Google that. And, I think Kurt Schaefer was the one that, sponsored it, one of the sponsors.
So I recommend if he comes to one of, let's say, a meeting or
Yeah.
something, you might want to talk to him about it.
Okay.
Otherwise, get in touch with the old lady who's gonna be out of a job if it passes and see what her advice is.
More than just one.
Okay,
Nope, that's all I have.
that's all. Anybody else?
I'm assuming Clifford's deposition is still Wednesday at
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. And it is an
Mayor has-
open
Yeah.
meeting,
It's not,
publicly open to the,
anybody can attend. The only people that will speak will be people called to testify either by Merritt or by Clifford for his attorney.
To testify, I thought it was just a deposition.
It's a public hearing to receive information and arguments about whether procedures were followed, whether the structure is indeed a dangerous structure under the ordinance, and what should be done about it. All that information is gathered and transcribed by a court reporter. The mayor has to, at the end of that, go into deliberations, and within, I think, 2 weeks, maybe 10 days, you have a period of time to then, based on what I've said, what the pictures show, what Mr. De La Rosa says, what he may provide in the way of some sort of affirmative defense about, I'm gonna get it fixed in 2 weeks or whatever. The mayor will make a decision that arises out of that. The procedure is in chapter 5 of the city code.
Okay, I just assumed that it was just a deposition, I didn't know it was a court hearing.
No, it is a hearing,
That's why
and
it's-
Clifford's been through it before.
Well, I knew there's a court reporter at the deposition too.
Well,
And
right.
that's what we called it last time, we did not call it a hearing last time.
But the point I was trying to make, Ferris, is that if Daryl's there or you're there, you can't just voluntarily give testimony to the board. It would have to be,
Yeah.
get together with Merritt and say, I have something to offer, Merritt can call you. Or if you want to do it for Clifford, on Clifford's behalf, Clifford can call you, and then you would be sworn in and ask questions, and you can give testimony.
Well, I guess the question I'm asking is, when did we go from a deposition to a hearing?
Never was a deposition.
That's what we call it.
He's been calling it a hearing before the mayor. That's what it's called. That's what it is in the,
That's what the letter refers to.
yeah.
I never saw the letter. I never received the letter that said that it was a hearing. We called it a
No, I
deposition.
didn't.
Okay.
That's why.
The language is
confusion on that.
very similar, the language is very similar to the original declaration of nuisance and dangerous structure. I can make you a copy of the box tomorrow.
Of his letter. Of course, I guess it's
Well,
kind of late now. To get the letter.
the procedure is the procedure. The procedure is described under state statutes. We have to follow that course to go through it. But I only made copies available to Clifford and to the possibly 2 people who might have a mortgage on the property. It's unclear to me whether Mr. Wright still does. There's no release, but the original mortgage has expired. And I was always given to understand that the other mortgage replaced the one with Mr. Wright. And Mr. Wright, I believe, is deceased, so the certified letter kicked back.
Anything else under FARs?
One thing, I thank the city administrator for making sure that I have a new roof on the police department. As far as I know, it's turning water as it's supposed to.
You haven't had a good test.
The world's a better place.
The hose, garden hose up there?
Well, matter of fact, I did test drive it a little bit.
I did notice that we hauled off a load of shingles from the fire station.
No,
Our
for
police
police,
station.
yeah,
I
we
mean.
supplied the dump truck for it to haul all the debris off.
So, I assume that's all been repaired and everything's good?
Yeah.
You just drive by and see for yourself, they're brand new shingles and the world's a better place.
Period.
They're architectural long-time warranty shingles. Denny went to Kansas for Thanksgiving. I left a little bit before the work was done, but Denny said they only had to replace plywood about like that on each side of the peak, because that's where the principal damage was. And it may just have been the installation in the first place.
What? All right. That's pretty good.
Save some money on material.
Yeah.
Good.
So The whole project would've been just over, a tad over $5,000 by the time you do the landfill fees for the shingles and Mr. Free, and the bill, which will be on the next week's list, from Denny.
Okay.
Just a tad over 5,000.
Yeah.
I wish my roof will get done.
Okay, yeah,
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
okay.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Anything else?
Let us know if you have any difficulties with it.
I hear a motion to adjourn.
Yes, sir.
No.
So,
Still have something else. You said anything else and you just.
oh,
teed
go
up.
on.
105 Allen, our lot that we own now, what's going on with it?
I haven't heard anything from Gary. I'll have to get in touch with him. Get in touch with him tomorrow and let me know.
I'm gonna get an engineer in there after we're done to find out whether that is a structure safe enough to sell. And whose, is
I
it,
had anticipated paying any more engineering.
is it, any more engineering fees? We paid engineering,
We paid for a study about 7 years ago now.
okay, I didn't,
Yeah.
but I mean, as far as the work being done,
No.
That wasn't included in the deliverables. It was a study on what we needed to do, not to inspect and oversee the project.
if I come in and buy, just hypothetically buy the lot, do I own the wall?
Half the walls.
Well, you,
I am still physically responsible for Angels Western Wear
That's a
and
zero lot
Garland's.
line now.
it's a zero line and it's being sold as is wherever the property line is in reality.
That's why I
Good
was
question.
What's the zero line?
The building,
The building's set up in the line.
Huh?
yeah, there's no setback. Are there two courses of brick still there or just one?
There's three.
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 The line is technically, should be.
I think it's like right down the line, right down the middle of the wall. I think
So you buy a lot and one and a half pieces of brick,
Yep.
That's what it sounds like.
That's what it sounds like.
And that's why it makes at least good, reasonable sense and, to initiate selling it to one or the other of the property owners, because at least then half of that uncertainty is gone, because they will own all of the wall.
yeah, if John, or if Angels bought it, they would be responsible for his wall, part of it.
Well,
What is our-
50%.
Well, in that case, if one of the other bought it, let's say, Angels John got it, and he could, give back their walls, to them or something.
They don't want that.
Here's your wall.
You can do a lot
Unless
split and amend it.
Unless it's completely repaired, they probably wouldn't want that.
Or, Carlos does it, they could say, here, John, here's your wall, you can have it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it'd be in my interest not to buy it or to take possession of it, because I'd want them on the hook for half the wall, wouldn't it?
Yes, and that's my point, what if we never sell it to anyone?
We got a little pocket park, I guess, or something, I don't know.
We have to completely finish fixing it and make it right.
We'll have to.
Let me just say that.
We will have to monitor the situation, and if it appears that we can somehow prove to be
Because we've never
sufficient.
ordered to paint it, have we?
No, we've held off since we were
Well, I knew
waiting on
we were
the.
gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Well, just out of curiosity, the Narragansett building probably needed repairs when they sold it.
I imagine it probably did.
I mean, we don't have to deliver it in new condition as a city.
No, well,
No.
clearly, we're gonna sell as is.
As it is, there it is.
But in order to do that, I want to have the bricks that we've contracted with 5 Oaks repaired, the repair that we've contracted, I want done, and I want Phil to put call it paint, but it's a sealant.
Ceiling on it.
And that will be the condition that is as is.
Yeah, we will figure out what we want to.
Not as it currently sits.
Right. And that's for Mr. De La Rosa. was Mr. Wright's building, he sold it, the roof leaked and started to fall in, the guy gave it back to Mr. Wright, and then he sold it to Clifford.
And Clifford didn't do anything to it.
Did
Of
we-
course.
Did we figure out what we wanted for the lot and half, two, or one whole wall, I'm assuming one and a half walls?
What I can get out of it, I have not entered into negotiations yet. I have talked to at least one person who's an appraiser to get a ballpark figure, but there are not very many comparables of downtown commercial property in the moment.
Yeah.
And James sitting there with his pencil, so I'm not in open session going to quote the feedback I got, but don't think we're even gonna get close to what we got in that property.
No.
And what do we have in it?
And it's north of 50,000,
Cash out,
Quite a bit north of 50,000.
plus a lot of labor, yeah.
plus labor.
I was assuming that it was more like closer to 100.
No,
No, our labor and equipment use wouldn't add that much.
Your labor and equipment,
The engineering contracts were not quite that much.
and then the two contracts with Five Oaks,
We only had one contract,
the interior and the exterior.
that was one contract.
Well, one of them came up to 50-something, 40, almost 50-something $1,000 itself. Under the contract, it came up to
you
over
gotta go back a long
$50,000
way,
by
but
itself.
right now,
That was just Five Oaks. And then the other one was $16,000 on the interior of Angels, and so that's already up to
cash expenditures, I
60
think, are
something
probably more than 50 and less than 60,
what,
and will remain less than 60 even after we pay the pay.
if the one was 50 that I looked at.
Those
the
were not to
contract,
exceed. That wasn't a guaranteed price, that was a not to exceed price. He was below on all those estimates. Lynn just told you, he said between 50 and 60.
And I see what he's writing down.
It says total 105 costs, I'll go back, tell the day of the explosion and see what we got into a cash fund.
And
You
as
want
far
the
as
date of that?
PE, our engineer to come in to tell us that we are safe to keep this building or sell this building.
If you wish to pay for that as an additional cost,
Oh, I understand that. But is it,
Not
according to
required.
our attorney, Mary, did he advise us to?
I can prep him, you can ask the question, and I'll tell him to do his research in advance, because Merritt very seldom gives a definitive answer without the opportunity to study it in
Without
advance.
preparation, yeah.
Even then, it's,
Nice to answer.
yeah, Mary.
Just like I have to look up the numbers, Merritt would have to consult.
Well, from the
Think about
contracts
it.
that you gave me, according to the contracts that you gave me, the numbers that I got were, just the two were over $60,000.
Which is what it could have been,
Which is what it could have been.
not to exceed.
Well, but we did exceed it though, we went
No.
to three different the one contract we did 3 times.
We
We
amended it.
amended it 3 times to get
I don't think so, I
more,
think
for
they
more
were
money.
amended with change orders,
For
but
more
they were
money.
not,
I will give you
I don't think so.
2 days,
Because we had to go in and do more work than what they assumed that we had to do in the beginning.
no,
And it went,
Okay.
I have a motion,
I-
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
are you cutting me off? Is that what you're doing?
I'm saying we're going in a circle, and I've got
All right.
things I gotta do.
All those in favor? Say aye.
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 Thank you.